Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating Podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway, and in this episode, I'll be previewing U.S. Figure Skating Championships that happens this week in Columbus, Ohio. It kicks off on a Thursday with the pairs short program, so I will start there with the pairs event, which I think is pretty wide open. So let's go through this list of competitors first. So we've got Emily Chan and Spencer Howe, Nika Digernes and Mark Sadusky, Alicia Efimova and Misha Mitrofanoff, Lindsay Fitzpatrick and Kaiten Behringer, Ellie Cam and Danny O'Shea, Ellie Koratek and Timothy Chapman, Chelsea Liu and Balaz Nagy, Isabel Martins and Ryan Bedard, Katie McBeath and Danielle Parkman, Maria Makova and Ivan Makov, Valentina Plazes and Maxim Fernandez, and Megan Wessenberg and Eduardo Caputo. So some of these teams we have seen so far this season, but I'm going to start right at the top with Emily Chan and Spencer Howe because they are the reigning silver medalist at nationals last year, and they were fifth in the world, second at four continents. And so coming into this season, they looked like the natural successors to the U.S. pair crown after Alexa and Brandon have stepped away. However, we have not seen them all season due to an injury with Spencer, I believe. So they're a huge wild card coming into this. They're not exactly the picture of consistency anyway. And it's interesting with them because with a lot of the pair teams, it's the side-by-side jumps that are holding them back. And with Emily and Spencer, it might be their side-by-side jumps, or it might be a throw, or it might be a lift. They have lots of different things that can go wrong, and obviously everything can go right. And having not seen them at all this year, I don't know if they've got new programs, if they're repeating last year's programs, if the injury affected their preparation in terms of new choreography at all. So all that is brand new until practices start tomorrow. So they certainly have on paper the most potential. But in my opinion, just looking at this list and what we have seen so far this season, my hot take or sleeper pick to win nationals is a team that probably won't even be eligible to compete, and that's Katie McBeath and Danielle Parkman. Now, it's possible that he could get released from Georgia. It has been over a year now since he competed. So, okay, first of all, let's just talk, because this time last year, Katie McBeath was skating with a different partner. So she has paired up with Danielle Parkman, who previously competed for Georgia. And so the way that it works is like once you have competed for another country, you have to sit out for an entire year, and then you have to be released from the country. So he has set out for over a year at this point because his last international competition was at Grand Prix Espa last season. But I don't know yet. I haven't seen any indication that he's been released from the Georgian Federation yet, which would be a problem for them to compete internationally. They would also need to go and get tech minimums as a new team in order to compete at something like Worlds. So they're sort of like my sleeper pick to win nationals, just because I think that technically they're potentially more consistent. I think they're doing side-by-side triple flips, if I remember correctly, from the U.S. pairs final, which is how they qualified to U.S. championships. Now, I don't know how consistent they are, but I've been impressed with what little bits of them that I can see, and with everybody else being such a wild card, I think that they could potentially win the whole shebang. The other sort of wild card in the whole mix is Alicia Efimova and Misha Mitrofanoff. So if you remember, Alicia Efimova previously competed for Germany with Ruben Blomart, who retired in the offseason. And Misha Mitrofanoff is a former competitor in the Grand Prix, a former podium finisher at U.S. Nationals with Audrey Liu, who left figure skating to pursue college studies after the 2022 season. So this team, I think, has very nice elements from what I have seen from them in the videos that I have seen. What's going to hold them back is the side-by-side jumps. That's what held Alicia back with her previous partnership, and what they were doing at the U.S. pair final was simply like side-by-side double toes and side-by-side double salchows. I don't know if that was just to ensure that they got here and they're going to take a step up and start to do side-by-side triples, or if they're going to keep that same strategy here. They're also a gigantic wild card coming in. Then you've got Chelsea Liu and Balaz Nagy, who could also be sleepers to win the whole shebang. They had two pretty good outings on the Grand Prix. They were bronze medalists at Skate America, and I believe they finished fourth in their second Grand Prix. Perhaps it was fifth. I should have went and looked before, but they had two good outings there. Their limitations are 100% in Chelsea's side-by-side jumps and at times in their throws. They also have very good elements. They have not been skating together very long, but they have gelled together pretty nicely, pretty quickly. And a lot of you may have not be familiar with Balaz Nagy. He actually formerly competed with with Pavlova, Maria Pavlova of Pavlova and Shevchenko, who are the Hungarian pair team that we just saw last week at Europeans and we saw in the Grand Prix. So he formerly competed with her for Hungary for like a year. And then prior to that, he competed as a U.S. pair person in juniors. And so this is the first time that we will see him at senior national championships. He's a very good skater. He's a little bit shorter in stature, but he has all of the elements to be a good pair team, and they have looked really good. It might be a bit early for them, but they've had some time now between now and I think they were at Grand Prix China. I think they got the spot when Chan and Hao withdrew. So it's been a while since we've seen them. They've had time to sort of maybe work on some of the elements that they were struggling on. They could also be somebody that could win as well. And so another wild card is Ellie Kim and Danny O'Shea, who came into this season. For me, I had much higher expectations, just sort of expecting them to take that next step. They started out the season really strong. Last year, when they came on at like Challenge Cup and Golden Spin, and then they got to Nationals, and it was a little underwhelming for me. They continued to be underwhelming at Four Continents to the point where I wasn't sure if they really should have gotten that spot to go to Worlds, and they really had a rough time at Worlds. It was really on the backs of Alexa and Chan and Hao that we were able to qualify 3 spots. I believe Ellie and Danny ended up maybe 12th at that event, which was a very strong skated event. The top 7 were all really, really good, but I believe they were in the top 10 after the short, but just had a rough, long program. So I was thinking coming into the season, they're going to improve a lot. They're going to get those side-by-side triples. And from what we have seen of them this season, it has been a real struggle. They did come out and win one of their challengers. It was either Finlandia or Lombardia. It wasn't with a great performance. They were just better than everybody else. And a lot of the challengers, okay, it wasn't Lombardia. I remember who won Lombardia. That was Conti and Michi. Must have been Finlandia. A lot of the challengers had really, really strong pair fields, and the challenger that they were in did not have a strong pair field. And so they really benefited from that. And then at their first Grand Prix was not a good short program, had a lot of falls in the run through going into the long program. So they ended up withdrawing. There was rumors that she had a concussion. No, she didn't have a concussion. Then they withdrew from their second Grand Prix. Yes, she had a mild concussion. And so the triple throws have not gone well. The side-by-side jumps have been very inconsistent. When she has landed them, they have been under-rotated. And so it's really, really hard for me to see them winning here. I don't see how they don't get to Worlds, though. Because if you just look at the field, we have 3 teams going to Worlds in pairs. I can't see how you can get enough teams ahead of them that they wouldn't go. Mostly because you have 2 teams who probably aren't going to be able to attend. Definitely not with Efimova and Mitrofanov. Big question mark with McBeath and Parkman. Probably depends on how they do here, whether U.S. Figure Skating will probably try to put some pressure on the Georgian Federation to release him or not. But but I think you probably have a team of Chan and Hao and Liu and Nagy, and it's hard for me to see Plazas and Fernandez ahead of Cam and O'Shea, even as poorly as we've seen Cam and O'Shea do this fall. Plazas and Fernandez have had a lot of opportunities. They got a spot at Skate America. They had another Grand Prix that had a bit of a weaker field, which was a great opportunity for them to get on the podium. And it's just a lot of the same issues that we've been seeing from them with those throws and their side-by-side jumps. And I even feel like their lifts in the programs that they chose this season are not featured as well as they were last year in like that Marvel free skate that they did. So they could pull it all together. who knows? And she even, I think it was her that posted on social media after their second Grand Prix, like, one of these days we're going to land these things. And I believe them because I'm sure that it happens in practice. And I have seen them land their throws, especially in like the practices at events and in the warm up at events. But there's something about the run through and the actual competition, the extra bit of adrenaline just clearly throws them off somewhere in their technique. So hopefully they have been able to try to simulate the competition atmosphere a little bit better in practice, because I would love to see them put it all together, because they do have all of the elements to be a really good team. It's just when it comes to the competition, it completely falls apart. And the other team that we have seen this season is Isabel Martins and Ryan Bedard. They were at Skate America when somebody withdrew. I can't remember exactly who withdrew that they got the spot, but they did so well in the short program. They were actually ahead of Plazas and Fernandez because their side-by-side jumps are actually pretty good. They are coached by Jenny Mino and Todd Sand. And so they struggled a bit more in their long program at the event, but if they have a short program here like they did there, they could put themselves in contention for a medal if they don't freak themselves out. And so they could put themselves in that conversation. Like I said, they're a little bit greener, not quite to the level that some of these other teams are at, but when it comes down to it, who can land their jumps and who can't? And then the Mokoffs, Maria and Ivan, they are doing the same routines I think they did last year, like the Malagueña and like the over the top, like 90s Russian free skate with the interesting costumes. And so I haven't quite seen the potential out of this team, unfortunately, but maybe this will be the competition they put it together. And then most of these other teams will, one that I'll mention were Digerness and Sadesky. I do remember them last year. They skated to the Nutcracker, and the poor thing, he fell in like the first 5 seconds of the program. But they were really a fun pair, and the crowd really loved them. So I'm excited to see what they look like this season. All right, let's move on to the men's event, because I think that the other two events are probably a little bit more exciting. Of course, I'm going to talk about dance last. So in the men, we've got Will Annis, Lucas Broussard, Jason Brown, Goku Endo, Tomoko Hiwatashi, Liam Kapakis, Joseph Klein, Kai Kovar, Jimmy Ma, Ilya Malinin, Daniel Martinov, Samuel Mindra, Maxim Nomov, Yaroslav Penyo, Camden Polkinen, Daniel Samohin, Andrew Torgashev, and Michael Z. So we have seen, again, several of these competitors, and I've been talking all season about the inability of anyone past Ilya Malinin to really go out and try to claim that third men's slot. In our minds, we know Ilya is gonna win here. Last year, he almost lost to Jason Brown. I don't see that happening this year, however. And Jason Brown feels like he's penciled in to the silver medal spot, even though outside of Warsaw Cup and the Shanghai Trophy, we really haven't seen him. And people have been a little mixed on the Tarzan program, so we'll see how it goes here. But even so, I think you have to look at this list and feel the most confident in him getting that second spot. So the third spot, who we've seen the most this season, well, who we've seen be the best of the next, is Camden Polkinen. And he hasn't had a great outing, really, in terms of both programs. One of his Grand Prix, he had a good free skate paired with a mediocre short program. And I still would probably pencil him in. I think he is going to 4 continents, and along with Andrew Torgashev as well. And I think, are they sending Nomov? I need to go back and look at that list. But no, I think they're sending Tomoki, actually, if I think. Anyway, so I think Camden is likely to get the third spot. But we saw last season that U.S. figure skating is willing to send, sort of whoever does the best at nationals to worlds, because since they know that they feel confident that Jason and Ilya can keep the 3 spots, you can sort of almost throw away the third spot. And so last year, Andrew Torgashev got that spot. He barely made the free skate. He finished 22nd. And so it wasn't a great outing for him. And he did not have a great fall either. And then Maxim Nomov hasn't had a great fall. Jimmy Ma had a great short program at one of his Grand Prix and then completely fell apart in the free skate. I think it must have been at ESPA because he did basically the reverse of what Amber Glenn did. He was like third after the short program, and I think he ended up 11th. Amber had gone from 11th to third. So it was pretty wild. And Liam Kapakis, beautiful skater, but just doesn't have the technicality that the other competitors have. Same thing with Lucas Broussard. So Yaroslav, I think, is chasing that same moment that he had back at like 2021 Nationals, or maybe it was 2020 Nationals. So maybe he had to withdraw from 2021 Nationals. He's had a lot of boot problems. I hope to goodness he has a new program this year and we don't see any more of the Elvis free skate. I'm very much over that. So in my mind, this is a battle between Andrew and Camden for that third spot. I don't know that anybody else has shown us enough to warrant it. Like, I really love Liam's skating, but I just his triple axle is just not very consistent. And then without a quad, that'll be another interesting thing. Like, how many men here like land quads? This has not been the most consistent group in the quad department. So we'll see. And Ilia at Grand Prix final, on the other hand, landed every quad at the Grand Prix final. Not in the same skate, but in the combination of the two programs, landed every quad, which was pretty amazing. Only because he didn't land the quad axle in the free skate, but he landed all the other quads. And of course, he landed the quad axle in the short program. Don't know if he'll I highly doubt he'll put the quad axle in the short program here. He really, really doesn't need it. I should have asked that in the press call that we had. Christine Britton asked a really great question in that call, and she was like, Ilia, are you willing to like be that guy that helps to energize like figure skating? Because we all want figure skating to increase in popularity. Like, it's never going to go back to what it was in the 90s. But we would all like to see more excitement for figure skating within the US and just kind of outside of us rabid fans. And he's like, yeah, like, I want to be that guy that's on like ESPN. Like, I want to be that guy. And so that's encouraging because I don't know that Nathan Chen necessarily wanted to be that guy. And I don't know that we have a lady that we can say, yes, go out and be on, even though like Ava Ziegler and Lindsay Thornburn were on the Today Show this morning. But when you think about like personalities that can go out and do that, like Ilia definitely has that personality. And so it's encouraging that he wants to be that guy. And it'll be interesting to see what exactly he does here at Nationals, because he doesn't have to throw his best stuff out to win here. We all know that. So, and he won't be competing again until World. He won't be at Four Continents. He'll be at Art on Ice again this year. So we'll see. We'll see what he looks like. He had a fantastic fall. He won Skate America, barely lost to Adam Sio-Himfa of France at the Grand Prix of France, basically because he fell in a step sequence in the short program, and he won Grand Prix final. So he has had probably the best season of anybody so far. Adam has had a good season too, but I think what we've seen from Ilia, even though we haven't seen him as much as we've seen Adam, has been more consistent. All right, so moving on from the men, let's talk about the ladies, which we unfortunately got a withdrawal last week, and that was Ava Ziegler, who won NHK Trophy, and what was, to me, just an extremely puzzling decision to skip out on U.S. Nationals to go to Four Continents. And so what we have seen over the past 20 years, even longer, with Four Continents is a lot of the top U.S. ladies just haven't gone to Four Continents. Michelle Kwan, Sasha Cohen, Isabeau went last year, she's not going this year. And so with the scheduling, and so just to clear up any confusion, U.S. Nationals was scheduled first. They were scheduled, I think, last summer, so it wasn't scheduled years out, but it was scheduled first before Four Continents was, and perhaps maybe a weekend later than what they normally schedule, but it's not uncommon to be this third weekend either. It usually sort of fluctuates. Typically in an Olympic season, they'll have it, a little bit sooner, and then most seasons, it seems like it's like that second weekend of January, but here we are. And then Four Continents literally starts next week, and it's in China. So unlike last season when it's like, okay, yeah, we can just go to Colorado and hang out, they're going to go halfway across the world. And with the way the visas work in China, they had to have sort of the team already picked before Nationals. And traditionally, U.S. figure skating picks their world team right after Nationals, like before the gala. And so it's very, very puzzling for Ava Marie to prioritize four continents over nationals, an event that she's only been at once and she didn't do very well, coming off of the biggest win of her career. Is just very, very strange to me. And it's very strange to me that US figure skating would also be okay with that as well. I mean, in my mind, her team is betting on Amber or Lindsay not doing well at nationals, because if they do well at nationals, then in my mind, you've already got the team. Like, coming into nationals, in my mind, Amber and Isabeau are on the team. If Lindsay goes out and skates better than Amber does here, then perhaps Lindsay gets on that team. Depends on how Amber does. But in my mind, Ava would need both of them to bomb to have an argument to get on to the world team. And then she would need to do well at four continents, provided that they even waited a week to name the team. So I don't know what's going to happen there. And I'm still just very perplexed as to why she would skip US nationals and what is, I think we were all hoping to be a really big showdown between the four of them, her and Lindsay and Amber and Isabeau. But she's not here. So we'll talk about the ones that are here. So obviously Isabel Levito comes in as the reigning champion and as the favorite. And she said in the press call that she really was putting a lot of pressure on herself to repeat as national champion and not lose her title. But she said she's really reframed the way that she's looking at it, and that she's trying not to put so much pressure on her and not look at it as of losing her title, but trying to win another one. And that she said what she learned at Grand Prix final was really that she could go out in the free skate, because she had nothing to lose at that point, and just kind of skate like she does in practice. And so she learned a lot about herself and what she's sort of capable to do, like just going out and letting it all fly in that free skate. And she hopes to sort of bring that same thing here at US Nationals. So I think the only person who could really beat her is Amber. Amber did beat her in the short program at Skate America. And of course, she had that really tough free skate with all the emotions where she landed the triple axel and then really fell apart in the second half of her program. And her next Grand Prix, she pops the triple axel and then skates lights out the rest of the program, goes from 11th to 3rd to get on the podium. A golden spin, competition that she should have won just based upon the people that were there. She had a rough short program, and then she went out, landed the triple axel again, and then proceeded to fall apart in the second half of her program again. So it'll be really interesting to see what her team's strategy is for her here. I guess I would feel more comfortable with her just nixing the triple axel and just trying to go out and skate clean, because she doesn't need it. She doesn't need the triple axel to beat Isabeau. She needs a triple axel to beat Cowrie or Luna. And that might seem nuts, but if Amber were to land a triple axel with everything else that she's capable of doing in that free skate, take that free skate she did to Espa, and you add like 9.5 points to that from a clean triple axel, then all of a sudden her scoring potential gets into the high 140s. Okay, so High-End Lee got like a 147 last year at Worlds. Cowrie got a 150 at Skate Canada. Sort of gives you an idea. Now, again, she doesn't have the scoring capability in the short program to get an 80 without a triple axel, and I would not advocate her putting that into her short program at this point in the season. But that's something that you could talk about if she gets to Worlds and what the strategy is at Worlds. But at Nationals, it's just not necessary. She doesn't need it to beat Isabeau. She needs a clean short program and a clean free skate, and she could win. And I think this is by far and away Amber's best chance to win at Nationals. And she could do it. She absolutely could do it. But if Amber skates last, let's say she wins the short program and she skate last, like, what goes through Amber's mind when she's had that long to sit and think about it? I think it's almost better if she goes into the free skate like close, but maybe being like 3rd, and then skates lights out where she hasn't had as much time to think about it. So that dynamic is going to be so interesting between what Amber is fighting herself, right? And Isabeau does consider Amber to be her biggest competition. She said in the press call she doesn't like answering those kind of questions when somebody asks her who her biggest competition was, but she said based on last year, it would be Amber. And then Lindsay, has improved so much this season over what we saw from her last year. She almost won NHK. Just the one jump mistake that she had cost, I think she had 2 mistakes in the program, but just one of them would have allowed her to win. Even so, it was the best finish of her career. Can she capitalize on that? She's been right in the same place the last 3 years at nationals, right around sixth. Is this the year that she can get herself onto the podium? And so it's definitely there for her. And I really, really want to see her do well. So she's doing a Twilight free skate. So just be prepared for that if you haven't seen it yet this season. All right. So some of the other competitors here, I just kind of jumped right into the women. Let's go through the competitors. We've got Star Andrews, Alex Evans, Sarah Everhart, Brooke Jewalt, Amber Glenn, Sonia Hilmer, Mia Kalin, Josephine Lee, Michelle Lee, Soho Lee, Isabella Vito, Ellis Lynn Gracie, Claire Co, Katie Shin, Audrey Shin, Lindsay Thorngren, Lindsay Wang, Ren Warren Jacobson. And those are the competitors here. So the other competitors that we've seen so far this season, we saw Star Andrews in 2 Grand Prix. Neither one of them she did very well. Star doesn't have a Lutz. The most difficult jump that she has in her program is triple flip, and so she tries to do 2 of those right off the top of her free skate. And if they don't go well, then it's kind of very difficult for her to really come back from that. So when she did so well at Skate Canada in 2022 is really when she was able to land those 2 jumps right off the top of her program. And so that's going to be really, really key for her, as well as getting a clean short program, because she does a triple toe, which is not going to be worth as much as everybody else's is, and she does a solo triple loop. Other people that we've seen this season is Claire Co. She was at Skate America. I was very, very puzzled when she got the spot over somebody like Ava Ziegler, and she didn't do particularly well there. It was okay, but not really expecting big things from here. Audrey Shin is another one who has had a couple of good outings this season in one program or the other. She had a good short program in one of her Grand Prix, and then where she didn't get any under rotation calls at all, which was a miracle. And then in the long program had a real challenge. That might have been at Skate Canada. And so you just never really know what you're going to get with Audrey just due to the under rotation calls. And then typically at nationals, they tend to be a little bit nicer about that than they do at some other competitions. I would prefer that they just be consistent with the international panel, but we'll see. And if you're noticing that Brady Tennell is not on this list, who was the silver medalist last season, no, bronze medalist, one of the two. She unfortunately broke a bone in her foot, or ankle, again, this poor girl. And so she's out this season. Again, we saw her very, very early on at Shanghai Trophy. And unfortunately for her, another bad injury for her. I'm very interested to see what Josephine Lee looks like this year. She performed very well at last year's nationals. Mia Kalin looks like she'll be attempting a quad. So we'll see how that goes as well. All right. So on to the main event in my eyes, and that is senior ice dance, which is just insane. So the competitors here, Emily Roddy and Ian Somerville, Una Brown and Gage Brown, Christina Carrera and Anthony Ponomarenko, Madison Chalk and Evan Bates, Isabella Flores and Ivan Desiatov, Caroline Green and Michael Parsons, Rafaela Conscious and Alexei Shepetov, Clara Kowar and Thomas Schwapek, I'm not familiar with him, Angela Ling and Caleb Wayne, Kara Murphy and Joshua Levitt, Eva Pate and Logan Bai, Katarina Wolf-Kostin and Dmitry Serovetsky, and Emily Zingas and Vadim Kolesnik. So we had 2 withdrawals here. The Hearst withdrawal was Lorraine McNamara and Anton Spiridonov. Looks like she basically dumped him as a partner. After their second Grand Prix, they did not have a good Grand Prix season. And after having a decent season last year, and it looks like she plans to continue, and she's going to try to find another partner. He is also going to try to find another partner. He'll probably have more success than she will, unfortunately, just because, Lorraine's at a higher level. And so trying to find a partner to her level is going to be difficult, but I wish her well. She looked so miserable in both of their Grand Prix this season. And then the heartbreaking one was Caitlin Hawaii and John Luke Baker, who withdrew last week. They posted on Instagram. I think On Ice Perspectives has also posted this year's free dance. Also, it was done outside. It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, probably the best material of their career. And they just had a series of unfortunate events. It started with Caitlin's concussion that they had in the Olympic season and really pushed through because they wanted to get to the Olympics, and did half a season last year and withdrew from nationals and opted not to compete, even though they were given a bye, put on the world team. And then were slated to compete in the Grand Prix this season, and unfortunately Jean-Luc ended up with a concussion, and so they had to withdraw from those events. And from their post, it looks very much like they are contemplating retirement, which is unfortunate but completely understandable just based upon what they have been through sort of the last 2 or 3 seasons. So I will read what Caitlin posted on her Instagram. Hi, everyone. After taking some time to reflect over the last few months, we have made the tough decision to take a step back from competing for the remainder of the season and reevaluate our options for future seasons. We wanted to share with you our material that we created and poured so much love into this year. It is so close to our hearts, and we couldn't miss the opportunity to share a piece of us with you. Thank you for the continued support over the last decade. It has meant so much to us to connect with you all on the ice. All our best, Caitlin and Jean-Luc. So, if that is it for them, and they've had a long career. Like I know sometimes it feels like they haven't been skating as long as they have, but I mean, they made the Grand Prix final in, I think, 2014. So they have been skating quite a long time together, and seemed like they were just at the point when they were about to break through. And like last season, they finally got medals on Grand Prix and made Grand Prix final. And just, like I said, a series of unfortunate events. So whatever they decide, I certainly wish them well, but it definitely looks like they are moving on from competitive skating. And so that certainly officially opens up that second slot for U.S. Nationals. Now, again, because they already had to name their team for 4 continents, the U.S. named Chalk and Bates, who are making, quite the decision to go forward to 4 continents right after U.S. Nationals. But, they are trained competitors. I'm sure they feel comfortable with that type of a turnaround. And also, I don't know if they feel like they've got to defend their 4 continents title, or they are worried about Piper and Paul getting momentum if they don't go. But, putting themselves in potentially an interesting position with that quick turnaround. But they are, barring some type of epic disaster, going to win their 5th national title here this weekend. And then they sent Carrera and Ponomarenko and Green and Parsons. So in US's mind, that's who they think will be in the top 3. And frankly, based on the scores that we've seen this season, I think that that's fair. I think Christine and Anthony have really fantastic programs this season, and better than Caroline and Michaels, honestly. So that could be an interesting battle. They were head-to-head with Zingis and Kolesnik and beat them easily. This is Carrera and Christina and Anthony. At Grand Prix Espa, they finished 4th, and Zingis and Kolesnik finished 5th. And they beat them in the rhythm dance by a couple of points and in the free dance by about 2.5 points. Now, if I remember correctly, Ilia had an issue on their one. Well, no, that wasn't the one. I guess it was Skate Canada when Ilia had maybe a twizzle issue that cost them some points. So it feels like, to me, like Ilia and Vadim are maybe like a year away from really where I feel like U.S. figure skating would like for them to be now, because they came out so strong at their first challenger and just absolutely killed it at, was it Nepola? And yeah, it was Nepola Memorial, and they got like a 75 in their rhythm dance. They're doing Michael Jackson. They were 3rd. They were even ahead of the Tashlers. Okay. And so, amazing. So they were actually 3rd in both segments of the competition, but they ended up 4th because the Tashlers were 2nd in the free dance. And it was kind of this whole thing. And maybe, so Davis and Smolkin were at that one. And I think there was a big error for them. Like, yeah, she fell in the free dance on a twizzle, and I thought they should have been off the podium, but they were still 2nd. And Emily and Vadim didn't get on the podium after all, even though, again, they had, good skates at that event. But I feel like in the free dance for them at every single event this season, there's just been somewhere, either a twizzle, 1-foot turn sequence, somewhere that Emilia has had some difficulty with. And so if they are going to make a move at nationals. I mean, they were fourth last year and barely fourth. They almost beat Christine and Anthony last year. They're going to have to go out and do the absolute best that we have seen them do, because I do feel like Christine and Anthony have better material this year. And I like both of Ilia and Vadim's programs. I really love the rhythm dance to Michael Jackson, and she is so strong. I mean, they both have just they perform at such a high level. But I just don't feel like the Beauty and the Beast free skate was just, it just doesn't hit all the right notes. It's fine. It's even good, but I just feel like it could have been great if they could have just made some different decisions somewhere. So in my mind, I think it's going to be Jock and Bates, Green and Parsons. Let me talk about them, because they have perplexed me so much this season, because they came at the end of last season. They were so strong, right? Because so many questions in the fall of last year with why are they doing Rhapsody in Blue? Like, what is this short, this rhythm dance that they're doing? Like, it's fine, but like, is this really Latin enough? But they came out at nationals and just frankly killed it. And they came out at Worlds and killed it after they had a really rough 4 continents. And so this season, I'm like, okay, it's either going to be them or LeJoie and Legat getting these silver medals, getting to the Grand Prix final. And they came out and sucked at Lombardia. So much so that they changed their rhythm dance. They originally had come out doing Paula Abdul, like Cold Hard Snake and Straight Up, which I thought was fun, but a lot of people felt like it was too similar to their Janet Jackson rhythm dance of a couple years ago. So they came out at Skate America and changed to the Scorpions with like the, black leather, and definitely stands out a bit more because we have so many teams doing like a more of a poppy style rhythm dance. So they looked a lot stronger. The free dance is clearly trying to somewhat mimic the Martha Graham style that they did 2 years ago. And it is not as successful. The music to me is a bit annoying and one note. I think it's fine, but I prefer Christine and Anthony's free skate to theirs. So we'll see, like between their last Grand Prix and now, have they made enough improvements to really solidify themselves as this number 2 team? Or are some of these other teams are knocking on the door. Are they going to be able to make a statement? So we have the Browns, who, started off pretty strong, like at Lake Placid. We saw them earlier, and they looked okay at Skate America. And then all of a sudden at Skate Canada, they were getting way higher scores than what they got a week prior. And so they're in the conversation, for a top 5 finish. Brodie and Somerville, who, again, when I first saw them this season, I was like, oh gosh, they're doing Prince in the rhythm dance. Like, really? And I don't think that that's their more successful program at all. But in their last Grand Prix, they looked really, really strong. And, they've been, 5th and 6th the last couple of years, just knocking right on that door. And then Flores and Desiatoff were at Golden Spin, and they looked really good at Golden Spin from what I can see from the protocol sheets. Obviously, I haven't seen their program, because there was no video at that event. But I did see them at the pairs final, and frankly, I thought they were better than Katarina and Dimitri, who I'll talk about here in a second. And I also was really impressed with Flores and Desiatoff when I saw them at Lake Placid also. They weren't in the international event. They were in the domestic event. They actually made me like a West Side Story program, and I do not like West Side Story programs. So do I expect them to be in the top 5? No. But they are, again, another really strong team that I think could really make a statement at these championships. And then you've got Peyton Bai, who I think peaked earlier in the season when they won Autumn Classic, which was a huge shock because they beat Loporeva and Brazeau, who just got 4th at Europeans, which was, I don't think, what anybody expected. I didn't expect it. It was crazy. So they got like one of the higher scores that we've seen internationally in the free skate by U.S. teams not named Chalk and Bates this season. But they've just not been able to get back to that. They lost to Zingas and Kolesnik in their head-to-head battle at Skate Canada. So I know they've been really disappointed in the scores that they've gotten since then. And frankly, I get it, because they go out and they're not ones that are getting like level 1 midline step sequences. Like, they get really good levels in their routines. They just don't get the GOE. It's just that judge's preference, and so we'll see what they look like here. And then Wolf Kostin and Serovetsky they've gelled very quickly because, of course, this time last year, Katerina was skating with Jeffrey Chin, and they had a rough rhythm dance at nationals, but then had a really strong free dance. And I was like, well, maybe I do want this team to stay together. Then they broke up. So, which again sounded like it was more on Jeffrey's side. It seemed like Katerina was a little bit blindsided by that, but she found herself another partner who used to be partnered with Isabella Flores. If you remember the whole "my partner is missing" incident, this was that partner. So interesting, right? So they came off at, like Placid and some of those summer events looking real strong. They didn't get any Grand Prix assignment, so they've been at some challengers. But they also look like a very promising team. And so, again, just a lot of really fantastic skating that I think we're going to see in this event. Again, if I'm going to make a prediction, I would say Green and Parsons and Carrera and Ponte, but I feel very lukewarm about that. I really do. And this is where, when teams are this close, this is where a twizzle mistake, putting your foot down in your 1 foot turn sequence, a level in your midline step, like this is where it can make the difference between you being 4th or 8th place. So I'm going to say we get status quo, barring some kind of major disaster. I would say Zingis and Kolesnik for 4, and 5th between Brody and Somerville, the Browns. I would take Brody and Somerville, honestly, but, the Browns now, skates are trained some at Ice Academy of Montreal, and so they sort of have that whole team behind them, and so does that help propel them over Brody and Somerville, who are trained at META? I don't know. It'll be interesting, but I kind of expect that to be the top 6. And hopefully we'll see better nationals for Conscious and Shepiatov. They are the ones that had the fall last year in the practices and had to withdraw. All right, so that is my preview for U.S. Nationals. I am just stoked about all the events, really. And I think outside of the men's, I think, there's questions about in all of the other disciplines as to who's going to win, what's it going to look like. And so thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. You can find me on all the socials, definitely this weekend at Ice Skate Podcast, especially on X. You can find me at thecuttingedgepod@gmail.com. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Bye.